All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, up there in
New York City.
Fangraphs Jon Tayler. He has survived the water park over the weekend. John, how much fun was that?
Water parks, I mean, look, I'm not normally a fan. As an adult, yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, this is the first one I think I'd been to as an adult. I remember going to one as a youth, like maybe, somewhere in that hazy, like, 6 to 12 span. But, like, it had been a while for me. And there are some, because I'd never done the big slide rides before where you get on the inner tube and, like, go down essentially a roller coaster, because I think I'd been too small or whatnot. But now as someone who is big, I can go down those, and those are actually quite fun. It's the other part of the water park, the you're constantly standing in water that's been peed in aspect that I'm really not a fan of. Also, the being wet all the time. I don't like being wet. You know, I kind of realize I'm like a cat in that sense. I don't, if I have to, fine, but otherwise, I'm a little out on it. So I prefer boats, I think, to water parks, because you can stay dry on the boat.
That's true. I mean, is it as thrilling as a roller coaster? Is it as scary when you're going down?
No, because that water park also had a small roller coaster, and I rode that, and I was like, oh, this is just the best. Is that feeling of like, oh, I think I might die. That doesn't really happen in a water park unless something's gone terribly wrong. That's not the point of the water park.
Yeah. Also, I don't know how you were recording with your phone. Like, was your phone is it super waterproof, John? Because I'm watching this.
It's just the regular iPhone 14, I think, whatever this is, with the just case, nothing.
And it would survive
special.
It. It was good.
Yeah, I mean, if you, there was one point in one of those videos where it just suddenly stopped recording, and I think it's because I realized at that exact moment that it's like I may drop this thing given what's about to come on the next turn. So, I wasn't fully confident that it would stay dry, but I also felt like as long as I don't drop this thing in the pea water, it should be okay.
So for all the folks who this summer, with it being the middle of June now, John, all the adult folks listening to this very program, would you recommend adults partaking in an afternoon experience at the water park?
If it's a really hot day, sure. The place I was at, there was a particular ride where a giant bucket of water would dump down from a great height and soak people underneath. And I told my girlfriends, like, I would if it were 100-degree day, I would just stand there all day, just in that exact spot, and not let anyone move me, and just be like, can someone just at some point bring me a hamburger and just keep a relatively steady flow of beers? And meanwhile, I'm just going to be here. I might get a lounge chair. I'm just going to be here and let the big water dump on me, and I'll be happy, But
like
otherwise,
Kelly, in that episode way back in the day with Always Sunny, where he's like, just give me a beer. He just wants to sit at the facility while they
when they're doing the tryout for to be on the Eagles.
Yes. He's like, this could be my whole day. I don't want to do anything else. This is it. I want to be posted up here all day long.
I'm just gonna black out and have a good time. And it's like, I could see, like, really hot day, water park, sure. Otherwise, again, it just depends on how much you like being wet.
Yeah.
And how much you like wearing a wet swimsuit constantly, which I don't find particularly appealing. No. I like my pants being dry.
Yeah, no, I feel you. That makes sense. Well, John, that naturally leads us to take of the week here. I don't know where you're going to go. I don't know if you're going to just go.
I was going to say, as I like my pants being dry, not hot enough a take?
No.
Okay.
You aren't going to get away with that one. Sorry.
All right. Well, if I've got to go with something that doesn't have to do with pants or water parks, and it's really all I prepared, so thank you. I'm going to go with the fact that I think the Angels need to go for it. I think that they are in strong enough a position, given what their team currently is, which is to say actually competent for once, that, and particularly given the context that they are 100% losing Shohei Ohtani this offseason. He will not return to Los Angeles, barring them winning the World Series, which, hey...
Still might not even be enough.
Still might not even be enough, but that's the thing. Like, barring you winning the World Series, Shohei Ohtani is not coming back. So you should be doing everything in your power to build the best possible team in order to do that. That should be the only goal of the Los Angeles Angels this season, is win a World Series, because I think that's the only way you convince Ohtani to stay. And you're right, it probably is not enough, because the Dodgers or the Yankees or, the Padres or whoever it is going to come to him and say, here is a 10-year, $500 million contract. And he will say yes. And he will have earned it, because he is the best player on the face of the earth, non-Ronald Acuna Jr. division.
I was going to say.
Did you see that second home run today? Oh, my goodness.
It's Barry Bonds-esque.
He's on pace for a 35-70 season right now.
Acuna's really good.
He's insane. It's crazy, especially because there was that definite point last season when everyone was like, oh, is recovering from an ACL injury actually not is this actually a real problem for him? And nope, actually, no, he's fine. Just turns out he needed some time to recover from a very serious injury. Well,
it's also funny, too, because when you look at it, everyone's like, is so-and-so good? Is Matt Olson good? There was a Locked On Braves about that. And it's just, Ozzy Albies is fine. Austin Riley is actually kind of having a down year. Orlando Arcia has been sneaky, extremely important to the Braves. And you're
very important.
I joke, but I'm like, if Ron Acuna was not in this lineup every day, I don't know where the Braves would be. But
no, I mean, he's maybe, I does say this does not qualify as a take at all, because I think it's the obvious and correct position, but he's the NL MVP without question. Yeah. He's the most important player in the league just by virtue of, like you said, that lineup, as good as it is, even without him, does not work without him.
Like, Michael Harris has been awful all year, part of that is injury, everything else. But
although he's looked much, much better in the last week.
Right, but it's still 100, 200 has he gotten? No, he's at 162. Probably 130 plate appearances have been quite bad. For Michael Harris.
And I think, for him, and as always, this has turned into a brief episode of Braves talk. Mm-hmm. But I think for him, that lower back injury was clearly more serious than either was initially believed or initially led on. And I think the combination of that and remind me, did he get hurt also in spring training
this year?
Yes.
I don't think so.
I feel like there was regardless of what he got hurt, I think early enough in the season that he essentially reset, and I'm willing to consider that those first, because it's been what now, 3 weeks since he's been off the injured list or so, 4 weeks. I'm willing to enough to the point that I think that injury was both more serious than it was, and also in timing, incredibly disruptive. And basically, I think kind of reset him to spring training status or something along those lines. But regardless, Acuna is a monster. But to get back to the Angels, they need to act as if that is the thing that will save the organization, because again, it's the only thing I think that would convince Ohtani, okay, this is actually worth a shot. And it needs to be not because this roster as it currently stands gets hot enough to make it work or whatever. I think it also has to be, I need to see a sign that this front office and that this ownership group is going to make an effort, which means they're going to go out at the trade deadline and they're going to get the pieces necessary to make sure that this team can win a wild card spot. Because I don't think the Angels can do this through winning the AL West unless we get a big time Texas collapse down the stretch. Or the second half, rather.
They're only 4.5 back right now?
They are... Or sorry, for the wild card or for the division?
For the division.
For the division, I think they are. Yes, they are currently 4.5 back at Texas for the division.
And you look at it. I mean, you get.
I guess I shouldn't say that necessarily. It's not going to happen through the division. I mean, you look at our, as I do every week. You look at our postseason odds over on Fangraphs.com. Mm-hmm. We have the Angels with just shy of a 16% chance to win the division. So it's not at all impossible. Yeah. And certainly, the Rangers have gotten only bad news in the form that, Jacob deGrom is done for the year. I don't know what reinforcements for that team look like, but at the same time, you need to see if you're Shohei Ohtani and you want to stay there. And I think that, if winning the World Series should be goal number one for the Angels, goal 1A is keep Shohei Ohtani here. I think he needs to see from them a commitment to doing something to improve the current roster. Because there are places to improve. This is not, but this isn't the Braves where it's like you look around, it's like, oh, there's some tweaks we can make on the edges. There are some places that really need some help, and the rotation is probably the biggest one. And you've got him saying, in the last 48 hours or so, that he's been feeling fatigued, in part because the Angels are currently had been working with a 5-man rotation. So that gives you, if anything, all the more incentive to say, hey, let's go out there and get a pitcher, and not just a pitcher, but someone who can actually like, take a real starter's load. Like, that sounded awful, and I didn't want to revisit it because I was like, don't make the mistake. It's fine. It's fine. Mm-hmm. We'll fix that in post. I think, we brought him up before, but Marcus Stroman, I think, makes a ton of sense for this rotation, given what he does. I think similarly, a healthy and maybe somewhat more effective Lance Lynn makes a lot of sense. I don't know that the Angels have the prospect capital to get, if the White Sox were to say, or better said, I guess, if the Brewers were to collapse and say, hey, Corbin Burns up for offer, make your best offer. I don't know that the Angels really have, the pieces to make that kind of trade work. I don't think they have what it takes to get an ace level arm, but the good news is they have an ace level arm already in Ohtani. So what they really, it makes it that much more feasible to say, okay, you don't need to go chase that guy. You can go focus on a Marcus Stroman, a Lance Lynn, someone like I would say Martin Perez, but I think Texas actually likes him and wants to keep him. Someone who you can feel comfortable saying, a 4 ERA or something, maybe, somewhere between a 3.50 and 4 ERA if all goes right down the stretch, and a guy who we can say with confidence, this is our number 2 starter in a playoff series. Because right now that's not Patrick Sandoval, that's not Reed Detmers, it's
definitely not Jose Suarez.
It's definitely not Jose Suarez, it's not Griffin Canning, and it's definitely not Tyler Anderson. Those guys are fine back of the rotation starters, I think, with the exception of Anderson, who's been truly bad. But, those are not the guys you want starting the second game of a postseason series if you can make it that far, particularly given that in a wild card series, that's an elimination game, one way or the other. That's either sending you ahead to the next round or keeping you in the postseason.
Also, and that's getting a lot of good vibes from dudes. They're just getting Mickey Moniak having a really good year for them. Zach Nato being called up and not doing the Joe Adele thing where he's just not going to figure it out. He's actually just no, I'm going to be awesome right away. And
no, Nato, I mean, you look at their lineup, and this has been a real problem for the Angels. Yeah, it's a good lineup, because this has been a real problem for the Angels in years past is, beyond the Mike Trout and then Ohtani, and for a little bit there, Anthony Rendon, or occasional 1 year standouts like Jared Walsh, there was a lot of 75 to 90 OPS plus in their lineup. A lot of sub replacement level guys just soaking up and sucking up plate appearances because they didn't have anything approaching any kind of depth to make up for it. And made it hurt all the more when Trout got hurt or when guys like Rendon get hurt. But they've actually managed to find, I think, the right level of still competent major league veterans to start filling some of those spots. I mean, Gio Urshela and Brandon Drury, neither of them have been great this season, but they've both been league average bats, actually Drury a little bit above, capable of playing multiple positions, which has been super helpful for an Angels team who just never has really figured out a steady infield.
Yeah. And when Jared Walsh was as bad as he was, Gio's
and then I think they thought they had that in Walsh, but then his injuries and his subsequent struggles, I think he's a huge question mark, I think, going forward at that position. Matt Tice, I don't think a lot of folks would have expected to be a performer for them. He's got a 123 OPS plus as their primary catcher. Which has been huge for them. Catcher has been a huge problem for the Angels for a long time now. I don't know if Tice is the long-term solution. I think it's almost certainly Logan O'Hoppe, who is unfortunately done for the year, but they've gotten production from places they normally haven't. Nato's got a 111 OPS plus so far, and that's after a pretty slow start to the season. Taylor Ward looks a little better after a slump. Renfroe has been more or less a league average bat with power, which is pretty much all you can expect out of him. There is enough competence here, I think, to make a wild card shot at least realistic, and our numbers agree. Fangraphs projections have them as an 86-win team with a 41.5% chance to make the playoffs. That's better than Seattle. That's better than Cleveland. That's better than... Are we really going to talk about the Red Sox? I don't have to if I don't want to.
Well,
those are better odds than the Mets and the Phillies right now. And I think that's worth playing for. And granted, it's a crowded field. It's going to be one of Texas or Houston, and at least and then 3 out of the 4 of Tampa, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and the Orioles, plus maybe a central team kind of nipping at your heels. And who knows if this Mariners team, they're 500 right now and they have not looked very good, but there is a potential for a second half surge there, I think.
They're looming, and I don't think they're going to go away. They don't seem like a bottom falling out team.
No, I think it's a team that probably, we have them projected to finish at 83 wins, and that feels about right to me. But that's not a team that's going to roll over going forward. No. I don't think. I think you're right on that. So yeah, it's definitely a crowded field, but I think that makes it all the more important to get out there and get the guys that can help you, especially as soon as possible. every win you can kind of, bank in advance, any advantage you can take matters that much more when the margin of error in this league for that third wild card spot might be a win. Yeah. To say nothing of maybe that's the margin for the division at the end of the day. And this is the Angels have managed to do this without Ohtani really being as, I think, what he has been on the mound so far, with Trout slumping a bit, although that the frightening thing there is considering that this is now what the downside of Mike Trout starts to look like, but I don't really want to think about that yet. I'm not ready for it. Again,
also,
a lineup,
even a slump, it's still a really, really great baseball player.
He's just
not elite. Or I shouldn't even say that. Like, he's still really good. He's just not AL MVP favorite anymore.
I think that's right. But I think the other side of that is, there's more to Mike Trout, theoretically at least, or at the very least that he is capable of more. And who's to say that it doesn't happen in the second half, presuming that he doesn't make whatever fixes he needs to make in terms of, combating the slump that he's been in. But
Major League Baseball has got to just be like, oh, don't toy with my heart here. Don't toy with my heart here.
And that's the other thing. Like,
I mean, can you imagine Angels Yankees in the first round if the Angels win the division?
Please give me a Shohei Ohtani postseason start.
Yes,
please. Like it's give me one more Mike Trout postseason game. He's gotten to play 3 in his entire career. 3.
Yeah, I just don't feel
the greatest player that we have ever seen the greatest player of our generation. 3 postseason games. It's an abomination.
The thing with Trout is he could have left.
He could. I know. I understand, and it's a valid point, and I think, that he certainly made his choice, and I think it was a regrettable one, at least from the perspective of baseball fans. It would have been nice to have seen him in a better market. It would have been great to see him in a better market, not a better market, on a better team.
Yeah,
consistently competing, being in the postseason. Obviously the team. He made a very huge decision based on some personal stuff that we obviously don't know, but I get that. But still, put him in the postseason. Right. Put him in the postseason. I want him and Ohtani in the postseason. And granted, that's really all I want, because the rest of the Angels don't honestly interest me all that much. But just give me Trout, give me Ohtani. Just this is their time now to make these moves. This is what they need to do. This is what that owner, especially given how the sour taste I think that Artie Moreno returning has left in everyone's mouth, in terms of, thinking they were finally going to be free of his bumbling ineptitude, and all of a sudden he pulls a 180. He's like, actually, no, I'm going to stay. I'm going to keep screwing things up. He of all people in particular, and I don't know if he's even capable of recognizing this in himself or feeling that level of shame, has to understand that he needs to make good on this stuff by actually trying to take that next step. Not just, here are enough players and parts to make this a 500 team with the capacity for more if every single thing goes right. It's to say, this is a team that's good enough that I think it's worth taking that extra step and taking that risk of adding on pieces that may not be here a long time or may cost us a lot of money for a short period of time, but that meaningfully improve our chance to get to the postseason and to keep Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
That should be the only thing that matters to this franchise. Can we keep Shohei Ohtani? Does that involve going to the postseason? Yes, then we need to go to the postseason. We need to do whatever it takes, barring the sale of the stadium out from under them to to Saudi Arabia or something. Just do what you have to do. That I think to me is the most important thing the Angels need to do at this point going forward. Is just make that decision, say we're in it. That means we're gonna go for it.
There you go. A team that should not go for it, and even if they did, they wouldn't go anywhere. The Kansas City Royals, Jon Tayler. They came out this week and said Salvador Perez will not be traded, that they're not looking to move him. Would you move him? What is his return? What is his trade value?
I have no. That's the thing. I have no clue. It's really hard to figure out because there are a lot of ways you can look at Salvador Perez in terms of just what kind of value he provides to your team, depending on what it is exactly you value. Because
I just imagine this came out because Kim Ng kept calling the Royals and we're like, "Hey, what?" And they're like, "Starting pitcher," and they're like, "No."
I mean, that's kind of a fascinating potential trade there that you just picked up. I don't. But here, this is the thing though. By essentially all the advanced metrics we've got, Salvador Perez is a bad defender. He's not good at catching. At least the framing aspect, the block, it just, he is not good at that stuff. He's a okay blocker. He's great. He used to be very good at deterring stolen bases. This year he's been quite bad. He's a terrible framer. He's got an okay arm at this point in time. Like, the value of a guy like Perez, I think, comes more from, and it's funny to bring this word up in the year 2023, but a lot of it is the intangible stuff. It's the clubhouse veteran aspect of it. It's the clubhouse leader aspect of it. And it's the I can lead a young rotation aspect of it.
Yeah.
To be that guy, essentially, to be that veteran catcher who brings that level of experience to a young staff that needs it. The problem I see with that is I don't know that necessarily you want to import that mid-season, because that's a really hard thing to do, is have a catcher learn an entirely new pitching staff on the fly in a playoff race. You're asking a ton of that person. And a guy in Perez who already expects to play every single day. So his workload is going to be 100% from the second you get him, and he's got to learn a new pitching staff. That's the kind of guy I think I'd much rather have in the offseason. Give him the entire offseason and spring training to learn that staff. To learn how this player works and how they don't. And that also gives you enough time to line up a decent backup alternative, at least in terms of a glove, or in terms of a guy who's going to play if and when Perez does get hurt, because that's the hardest position to play in baseball, and the one that probably leads to the most injuries, aside from pitching. Yeah. So, I'd also have a hard time kind of figuring, well, how does a team value that in terms of, well, here are the prospects I would give you for that? I don't know. I think this is kind of something where a team would say, look, if you want to move Perez, here's a list of guys. Pick out some names you like, and maybe we can come to a deal. I don't necessarily know that that's something where, the Royals can even come out and say it would take 2 top 100 prospects. I mean, first of all, that would get them laughed out of the room, although I don't know that would stop the Royals in the first place.
Yeah.
But at the second, it's like that doesn't feel like even remotely a normal price to pay for. I just don't know what the valuation of a guy like that is.
Do you think it's higher or lower than what Contreras was on the table for last summer?
I think probably lower, because Contreras is a better hitter at this point in time.
Yeah.
They're both poor defenders, but I think there's a ceiling or an upside with Contreras that Perez doesn't really have anymore. And so that was Jose Urquidy was the rumor straight up for Contreras.
I think so, yes.
And Dusty Baker said no because he wanted Urquidy down the stretch. I mean, that's a young, cheap, cost-controlled back-end rotation guy. I guess, but I mean, like, if you're the Marlins, what does that look like on the actual Marlins right now? Like, if you're the Marlins, I think if you're the Marlins, the Royals probably say no, actually give us some prospects instead. But what is a Jose Urquidy on? Is that like Braxton Garrett?
Yeah.
If you're the Royals, do you do Sal Perez for Braxton Garrett? It's a fascinating kind of challenge trade on both ends, or if not a challenge trade, at least a kind of weird, like, oh, that's what a catcher is worth in that specific catcher. But like, I don't know. I don't really know that it's ultimately worth it to Kansas City either. I think there is a genuine value to having a guy like that just around, and also just to, again, like, if the return for it is going to be Braxton Garrett, a guy who is a good starter but probably profiles as a long-term, like, middle of the rotation at most and back into the rotation at most likely guy, I guess that's the thing. How do you value a guy who means more to you for intangible reasons than for what he actually can do on the field? And which is not to say that every value that Perez provides is intangible. I mean, he's a very good power hitter, but and he's, even if he's not the best catcher, he's durable as all hell, and that's got a value in and of itself. It's the weirdness of, like, how do you make that particular acquisition work for you midseason? And I don't know. Maybe some team can figure it out, but if I were a GM, even if I needed the catching help, I don't know that that's the route I would want to go.
That's fair.
I mean, the Royals also have a billion other problems beyond, like, whether or not to trade. So, do you know they now have the worst record in baseball?
We talked about it, where it's like they've been shielded by just unbelievable intentional ineptitude in Oakland. Yeah. That in any other year, the Royals we're looking at as like, what an unmitigated disaster this is.
This is really something. Like, you're 100% correct. Like, Oakland did this on purpose.
Yeah.
The Royals just ended up here. This is not necessarily the intended result, but man, they're running a .269 winning percentage on the season. They're on pace to finish 46 and 126, and they just lost Vinny Pasquantino for the rest of the year today. Yeah. Today being Wednesday. They're gonna lose 120 plus games. I don't think there's a single doubt about that. They are an awful, awful team. And boy, like, I don't understand how anyone in that front office can return next year. Like, anyone. Like, I don't think we've seen a clearer example of like a needed clean sweep. Well, they did, but JJ Piccolo is a Dayton Moore, lieutenant. Yeah. Like that's a change only in the sense that if Alex Anthopoulos left the Braves, leaving one of his guys in charge for leaving. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know the Braves front office well enough.
It was Dana Brown.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. If Dana Brown were still in Atlanta, would have been the equivalent of Dana Brown taking over, which is to say nothing about Dana Brown, but more to say that. This is not. I don't think there's necessarily been much of any of a change from one regime to the other. I think the only thing that's changed is the guy who makes the ultimate decision. But I don't know how you can have a team lose 100 or be on pace to lose 125 plus games, and if that comes to pass, I don't know how anyone in that front office should survive. Like the second the season is over. Also, if anything, they should all be let go of right
situation,
now.
Right? If you're a fan where you've done this long-term rebuild and you were bad. And the wheels came off quickly after winning a title and everything that went on there. And then for the wheels to fall off the way they did. So you get bad, and Salvi has been here for all of this. But then the rebuild does somehow just, it makes things exponentially worse.
Yes.
And there's really no hope because even this rebuild has set you back so much further in top of another incoming rebuild.
We're probably talking about not seeing a winning Royals team for another 5 years.
Yeah, they're going to do a decade plus of horrific.
They're back to being who they were because I think that the problem is likely similar. It's an ownership group that doesn't want to spend. Although I guess we'll see to a certain degree because now it's a new ownership group. But results obviously so far have not been positive, and it's a front office that is very clearly not up to the times. And that was always the thing with the Royals of years previous. It wasn't just the fact that they didn't spend. It was that front office just seemed stuck in whatever the previous decade was. Again, we've talked a lot about how much of a failure their pitching development has been. Their hitting development has been saved only by the grace of, honestly, Pasquantino so far. Yeah. Bobby Witt is a superstar five-tool athlete, but he's also posting a sub 300 on base percentage right now.
Yeah.
There's only so far that can take you. And right now, granted, being the latter-day Tony Bautista at his age isn't exactly he's still only 22 years old. He's a child, but there's still a lot of development he can do. But so far, it hasn't been good.
Yeah,
to say nothing of Nick Pratto, to say nothing of the rest of the young bats in that system that just simply have not progressed, or whom they just simply don't seem to have time or energy for. Why is a guy like Kyle Isbell not playing every day? Why is a guy like Edward Olivares not playing every day? Why are you they just now, a week or in the last few days, DFA Jackie Bradley Jr. And no disrespect to Jackie Bradley Jr., whom I love so deeply and in a way that I don't even really fully understand. Mm-hmm. That's not a guy you should have signed in the first place. JBJ has nothing to offer a major league team at this point besides his glove. And there are a million dudes theoretically in every farm system in baseball who can do exactly that. Those are the guys you should be taking your chances on. Why are you bringing these dudes in the first place?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the Royals roster, and it just doesn't really make sense. And I think this is where the Perez stuff ultimately confuses me too much. Is I don't even know what they would really do that would make all that much sense. Why? And granted, I think part of the problem too is you look at that lineup now. Everyone with the exception of Perez is under 33 and substantially so in a lot of cases. This is a bunch of young guys struggling together. But again, you couple that with the pitching development, you couple that with some just truly strange player management decisions that just don't seem to make any real sense. You couple that with the bad luck of a guy like Pasquantino getting hurt. It's a perfect storm, but again, like you said, this is where they ended up because of decisions that they made. This is not an accident. This is not intentional in the sense that the A's are intentional. This is where the Royals put themselves because they're bad at all of the stuff you need to be good at to build a major league team.
Go Royals.
I know, it sucks, but I just feel bad for Royals fans, especially because they got such a short time on the top of the mountain before they got kicked back into hell. Them and Pirates fans just got that brief, sweet taste of freedom, of life on the outside, and then they got thrown right back in. And that's
at least the Pirates, there's still a little bit of hope. We talked about it, where it's
it took a decade for that to come back, basically.
Yeah.
The last 5 to 8 years in Pittsburgh have been a real unpleasant mess baseball wise. And we're now at that point with Kansas City too, that this has been a long time going, that this has been a completely uncompetitive team. Just not completely uncompetitive. Night in and night out, not at all on the same level as the team facing them.
Well, don't worry, John. They're going to trade Aroldis Chapman for King's ransom and be fine.
And that's the thing. Their path back to this is the other thing for these front offices. Why do you want these guys running the next draft? They keep screwing up. The worst thing they can... I understand the draft is in a month, basically. There's not enough time to... Even if you wanted to do something, at this point, you're kind of locked in. But this is why these decisions have to get made quickly and decisively, too, because they are now ruining future crops, so to speak. They are poisoning the well for future Royals teams because they don't know what they're doing right now. And that has such a huge ripple effect that, like we said, it's going to be the reason that this is not a winning team for quite some time.
Yeah. Jon Tayler, speaking of winning team and not a winning team for quite some time, Alvarez gone for a month. McCullers now gone for the year. The Astros reportedly looking for a lefty bat at the deadline. We talk about season from hell, but the Astros really are just having the season from hell.
And despite all that, they're 9 games over 500.
Yeah. But does this continue? Do you see the wheels falling off? How much more can they withstand at the injury front?
It's thin now because obviously losing a month's worth of Yordan Alvarez at bats is bad. You don't need me to tell you that, nor do you need fancy numbers for me to tell you that. But we have their postseason odds right now at 64.5% and their division odds at 35% roughly. So that's they're about 7 points behind the Rangers in division odds and about 7 points behind them in postseason odds too. That's still pretty good. Those are the best. Those are better odds than the Orioles, than the Blue Jays, playoff odds overall, than the Angels, than the Guardians, than the Twins, are about the same as the Twins, and the Twins are leading their division, which I don't want to delve into AL Central talk, but man.
What's funny, though?
Well, I guess we just talked about the Royals, so we already spelunked through sewers.
That's true. The Twins, the thing that's funny to me, and I shouldn't say it's funny, but Twins fans hate this season. They're in first place, and every Twins fan on Twitter is I hate this team, I hate what we're, I hate this. I hate these calls. I hate the management style. I hate everything. If you go through Twins Twitter every day, you would never guess this team was in first place. Twins fans are not having fun at all.
That's the thing. What fun is there to be had with a 500 team? It's just a frustrating place to be.
Yeah.
You're not good enough, but you're also just...
you're going to make the playoffs and get blasted by the Yankees or something.
Exactly. It's just, it's almost it's not the sense of what's the point? You take your small victories where you can, but when you talk about the overarching goal, it's this is not really a very fun place to be.
No.
But with regards to the Astros, it's a pretty thin place right now. It's... Yordan Alvarez was projected almost certainly to be their most valuable player going forward. Again, losing a month of that is very bad. I think obviously it's survivable, but the problem is that team doesn't have a whole lot of hitting depth right now anyway. We've seen a lot of it already because they've had so many injuries to deal with already. And that's the thing. There's not really much left on the Astros 40-man roster that's really going to be of any help to them, When you talk about, you look at what there's in AAA, there's David Hensley, whom they've tried and, has not really worked out. There's Rylan Bannon, former Orioles and Cubs piece, I want to say, who is, again, no great shakes. That's really it. Otherwise, it's a second rounder they drafted in 2017 named Joe Perez, who is now in his 6th year in the minors and is a utility bat, and a catcher in Corey Lee. There's nothing really left to add hitter-wise, that's going to be of any help to them. And so understandably, that means Dana Brown, like you said, he's looking for another lefty bat, especially because with Alvarez out, that's a pure righty lineup. So... I don't think unless, Jose Abreu finally remembers that he's Jose Abreu and or turns back the clock to being Jose Abreu of the past, they really can't afford any more hitter injuries. This is about as far as it can go. In terms of what they need to do, I think it is add some kind of lefty bat, and I think you would probably want to focus on a corner outfield piece. Or either corner, anywhere in the outfield that isn't right.
Who's feels the lefty target for them? Who are they thinking in the summer with that coming out? Who is, because that got intentionally leaked, who do you think they're targeting?
That's a good question. The trick of it is, I don't really know that there are going to be that many. I think If San Francisco falls out of the picture, I wonder if Jock Peterson makes sense.
I
wonder.
If they keep playing the Cardinals, I think they might win the World Series.
I wonder how attached the Cubs are to Cody Bellinger going forward, particularly given that they're clearly not going anywhere. But it's a rough group right now. Otherwise, I mean, Max Kepler, I'm sure the Twins would be happy to move to try to get something for, but that's not really gonna, I think, do anything for the Astros. Similarly, I think a guy like.
Jock really enjoyed beating the Astros in the World Series with the Braves. I don't see him being okay with it.
I mean, he's also not. I think it could work there regardless of what that whole situation is. But I also don't know that that's really the kind of impact that they need.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think without being able to spend big on prospects, as you look at around the league and you look at the teams who are more or less out of the playoff picture. I mean. Does Detroit really have Detroit doesn't really have a lefty outfield bat to offer, neither does Kansas City. I don't think the Red Sox are going to put Alex Verdugo on the market, and I don't know that does anything for Houston really anyway. The A's, what's the point? The Nationals don't have that. I mean, maybe if No, I mean, I don't really know where that comes from right now, unless I'm just missing something that I'm just missing something.
Is there
clearly
a white
here.
sock we can throw on them?
Andrew Benintendi?
I was gonna say
but I don't know that does anything really for Houston either. I mean,
yeah, that's
kind of the thing is who.
Well, you also got to consider Drew Gilbert being a superstar right out of the gate when he gets called up, whenever that is. So you have help on the way.
I mean, I don't know, maybe, but honestly, for as much as I've laughed about that, maybe that is part of their calculus. Is let's see what Drew Gilbert does over the next 2 months, and maybe he's a post-deadline call-up. Maybe that gives them some time. I mean, I think that would probably be the sensible plan of action. Is hey, let's take the next 2 months, see what happens with Gilbert, check out what happens around the rest of the league, try to make a list of names here, see what we can get at the deadline, and if the deadline doesn't work and Gilbert's killing it in Double-A, bring him up.
Yeah.
That honestly might be as good an option as any, because again, I don't really see where the lefty outfield bat is coming from, at least from any team that's already out of it, where you think that's really going to make any kind of sizable difference. I think it's I think maybe one option is the Cardinals, since they do have their glut of outfielders. But at the same time, like, what is that? Do you have what it would take to get Lars Nootbaar? I don't think so. I don't really see that happening. I don't think they're going to give up. I don't think they're going to give him up for anything, for any kind of cheap price. And otherwise, aside from that, Jordan Walker's a righty, and obviously someone that they're not going to get rid of easily, or they're not going to move easily. Tyler O'Neill's hurt and a righty anyway. Does someone like an Alec Burleson really move the needle? Does someone like Dylan Carlson really move the needle at this point? I don't think so. So I'm not really sure where they're going to get that lefty bat, but I think they definitely do need to find it, though. I feel like, because this team cannot really suffer any more offensive injuries or struggling.
I would agree. Jon Tayler, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at Fangraphs this week? What is your favorite highlight piece this week?
Favorite highlight so far is honestly, and granted I'm biased, but I really liked Eric Longenhagen and Tess Teruskin doing their Red Sox top prospects list. Learned an absolute ton from it. As is the case with every top prospect list that we do, they are so full of information and great comps, and Eric and Tess have done a fantastic job with them this season. So in that vein, we're going to have the Angels top prospect list out this week on Thursday. We're going to have also a draft rankings update to come at the end of the week. Plus, we've got, again, for the college baseball sickos, Michael Bauman doing some World Series preview. He put out Bracket 1 today on Wednesday. Bracket 2 is coming, I believe, on Thursday as well.
Hey, John, can you ask Mr. Bauman a question for me when you get a chance?
I certainly can.
Ask him. It's a very simple question. Among the two SEC teams that we are both fans of, which one ended up getting through the Super Regional to make the College World Series this weekend? Which of the two? Was it South Carolina or was it Tennessee?
I'm going to guess the answer is Tennessee, because you wouldn't be bringing this up if it were otherwise.
It's Tennessee, John! Paul Skeens versus Andrew Lindsay on Saturday night under the lights in Omaha? LSU, Tennessee?
I don't know what most of those words mean, and I don't think any of them are in the Bible.
There's going to be 3 top 10 prospects.
That said, once we're done recording here, I'm going to go watch this clip of Chase Burns doing a thing.
Chase Burns. 102 miles an hour. Like,
how does
just
the Tennessee baseball team have 2 dudes named Chase?
Look, everything's coming up Chase here in Knoxville, Tennessee, John. I'm not saying
I believe you.
It's an impact, but there's a lot of Chases being born here now because of just the success here in Knoxville. So it's a good time to be Chase in Knoxville. But Chase Burns hitting 102 and just striking out Dustin Dickerson, who I think is Corey Dickerson's son, if I remember correctly.
Son? No, there's no way. Corey Dickerson isn't that old.
Who's his dad? It's someone's. Who is Dustin Dickerson's father? Let's see here.
I'm genuinely curious
Bobby
now.
Dickerson. He played at. Who am I thinking of?
I don't.
He's currently
I don't
an
know
assistant
Bobby
coach for the
Dickerson.
Phillies.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to know what Bauman thinks about Tennessee's chances, check out part 2 that's dropping on Thursday. Like I said, Eric will have a draft rankings update, which I'm sure will be chock full of names you will see in this year's College World Series.
I don't think they're related.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Yeah. Well, I remember I told you, like, we're getting old, man. Like, you have Jack Wilson's son who's playing well for Grand Canyon.
Yeah, well, Jack Wilson played in the late 90s and early 2000s. Like, Corey Dickerson was just on the Nationals, like, last year.
Manny Ramirez's son, I told you, is committed to the Vols for next year's class.
I'm very excited for Manny Jr. to be in baseball, or whatever his name is. I hope it's Manny Jr.
It's not Manny.
That's a shame.
Manny Ramirez's son. I got it's a fun, good baseball name, though. Son name. What is it? It is... Oh, it is Manny Ramirez Jr.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Oh, this is amazing. He has all 3 sons are named Manny. That's the most Manny Ramirez thing of all time.
Yes, it is. I really, really appreciate that. But
wow.
Yeah, coming over to Fangraphs if you like college baseball and draft stuff and also other normal baseball stuff. I shouldn't say normal. The college baseball's fine.
Oh, I was right. It is Lucas. I'm not crazy. I was like, it's not him. It's Lucas. I was like, I'm like, I don't remember it being Manny Jr. Okay. Yeah, it's Lucas. There you go.
Anyway.
I
like this digression. It's a good one.
Yeah, I got to get it right.
That's why people listen to this podcast, because you got to get it right.
Absolutely. People love the LA Dela Cruz. Like over 1,000 views for that one in the last 48 hours.
Hey, there you go.
People love LA Dela Cruz. He's going to be a star. Hey, Major League Baseball, market it well. Market Ellie well. He's fun. And people want to watch him.
Do right by Ellie.
Yes, absolutely. And Red, spend. Jon Tayler, always a pleasure. And I will talk to you next week.
Sounds good.
Well done, nephew. Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.